let's start right off. If you think that I'm Facebooking here, I'm not. I just want to save the environment by not printing too much, or I forgot lost my other paper. It's one of those options. And now I want to start off with two questions that we asked in our Facebook event before. We told you about the reflections and gave you the chance to also post questions below. And I just want to ask two questions pretty much for all of you to answer. The first one is the first to take. Alright, so I'm just going to read out. So my burning question, I think this girl is in the audience, and the guy from the second question is as well. My burning question is the following. As a millennial, with the will to make positive, sustainable change in this world, but with a low self-confidence at times and a strong tendency to job hop, how can I establish myself in a way that I'm financially secure whilst living up to my dreams and ideas of inner purpose?
And ideas?
And ideas of inner purpose. It's a long question.
Well, I think I disagree with your question to the extent that it's sort of, it leads the, or it implies that you cannot be successful if you're insecure, for instance. I think we're all insecure. So maybe starting with that, because that's probably the easiest one, is still do whatever you want to do and overcome those challenges and overcome your insecurity. I mean, I get nervous all the time. I'm doing a job for which I am probably 80% fit, because, or maybe even less, because I'm doing a lot of things I've never done before, which often scares the shit out of me, but mostly things go well, and sometimes they don't, and then I learn more. So I think it is also about the way in which you start a project and how you perceive a learning process. I mean, nobody's perfect, and nobody's got to be perfect. There's no such thing as being perfect for a job. It just doesn't exist. And if you are perfect for a job, you probably need to really move, because then you're done learning and there's no stretch anymore. So that's point one. And point two, I think if I understand the question well, I think that I'm doing that to the extent that I have financial security, which is also a bit of a golden cage at times, because it can get a little bit too easy where you're at, because financial security is nice. But at the end of the day, most millennials don't care as much about financial security anyway. And I think you can get financial security in so many different ways. If you do something that you love, so for instance, what I always say is that I like to take risks, right? So I have an opinion within a company, and sometimes I'm searching for risks, and I'm trying to change things, and you know, sometimes that's risky, and then I always think, you know, what's the worst thing that can happen to me? I get fired, I go and work in a restaurant. You know, there's worse things in life. So what do I need? I need food. I have a little bit of fuck you money, is what I like to call it. I have a little bit of savings. So I'm lucky. Oh yeah, no, I mean, that does sound pretty bad. You can use it for several things.
I'm not sure if I have fuck you money.
Yeah.
Well, maybe a small link or slogan now at Deedmob is "Fuck me, I'm a volunteer" in the David Guetta format. So that fits in quite nicely over there. So,
yeah. So I mean it in a very different manner. I mean it in a way that it gives you the power to be independent, to stay true to your own beliefs and to your own wishes and to your own dream. But I think actually all of us should be able to be that regardless of having money or not, because you know, we are all lucky, we're all well educated. We will be able to find a job. It might not be the job of your lifetime, it might not be the job of your dreams, but I think we are all relatively lucky to the extent that if you start working in a supermarket, in a cafe, you know, financial security will still be there. So you're not, I don't think the risks that we take have to be that big. So you can also choose to work in a cafe for 3 days and then do something you love the other 3 days. So this is a very long point that I'm trying to make, but I think it sounds as if those things are binary or contradictory, or you can't have one or the other. I think that is a false question in itself. So I think it is possible. I think you can make a difference. My own belief is that it is important also to try and make changes within big organizations and to not job hop, but we'll get to that later. Because I think you do have to understand the situation, the interests, the people who are involved in order to really make genuine change stick. But that can be anywhere and everywhere.
Anything to add from your side? Because, yeah, Ivana?
Just very shortly. I just wanted to add something to that first point about confidence level. So I was just recently doing this training about the art of influencing and how confident people look to the audience and how confident they actually are in their inside. So if you think of a scale from 1 to 10, you have people who are on a confidence level between like 1 to 3, and they shake your hand and they don't even look at your eyes, they're like really shy. Then you have someone who's like a 10, very confident. And the thing is that 55% of our communication is really nonverbal, so 7% is what I'm saying. So I can basically talk total crap and bullshit to you now, but if I tell it in a way that it looks visually nice, you might perceive me as a confident person while I'm nervous in my inside. So if someone is concerned about, I'm very like low confidence, how can I make an impact in the world? Well, maybe instead of like thinking too much about the context and the content, you can really fake it till you make it. You can work on how you are perceived by the audience and how you can, I wouldn't say deceive them, but like make it look like you're confident. And then I think that a lot of very successful people in the world are not as confident as they might look like.
Right. And I think to piggyback on that, because I think she's really right, but also like, if your starting point is to change the world, it's going to take you some time. So start small and build up confidence. Do it step by step. I mean, I didn't think of my company that I started like a year ago. I mean, I started with this, we started with 3 guys. We're 40 now, but we started small. So start small, build up confidence, the rest will come.
How can we make a difference, you know, as a student, for example, you know, just having a little time available, how can you make a difference, and how easy is it actually, if we talk about, you know, things like volunteering, to get involved? And from your experience, are we seeing a trend? Are people getting more and more into that, or do they just wait until they can maybe join an NGO one day?
Maybe first of all, it's maybe helpful, but I didn't do the introductory remark, just to explain what is Deedmob, what do we actually do, which answers this question basically as well. What is Deedmob? Just a small anecdote. So same here, grand visions, how can we save, you know, the polar bear I heard before, I like polar bears, so how can we save them? And we just need a group of 5 friends and we're going to do it. Well, that was of course not realistic. And then I tried to look what volunteering I could do related to that, because NGOs often need volunteers in their cause. So I looked one, which wasn't with a polar bear, but with a big panda bear, World Wildlife Fund, WNF in Dutch. However, they were looking for volunteers, long-term volunteers who could only show up on Thursday evening and then the next 4 months after that. Well, even though I wanted really to save the polar bear, I did not have time for that every single Thursday evening for the next 2 months ahead. So I contacted World Wildlife Fund and I asked, is there something I actually can do more like flexible, or is there a way that I have maybe my own idea with a couple of friends? How can I get involved? And despite the fact that there were a couple of initiatives, this was not enough. And I'm speaking to a lot of friends, they were as well looking to do something good, as we would call it. Where can I, if I have an hour of time, where do my Facebook friends go to? How can I get involved? And that's when Deedmob was born. And I should say as well, another part of that was that when speaking to charities, even though many of them were very idealistic and a bit linking what you were saying as well, that there's an older generation which does certain processes and certain steps. But to me, maybe very ambitious or ignorant, I thought, well, I would do that differently. That doesn't seem professional to me. They were using old technology. There were even a charity using Windows XP, and they found themselves modern because they were doing something with the internet. So that's when Deedmob was born. What is Deedmob? Deedmob is a platform, social media platform, with 2 different elements. One, that we lower the boundary of doing something good, finding volunteering opportunities. And the second part is that we provide free of charge the newest technological tools to charities which make their work more impactful. Most importantly, maybe I assume there's not a lot of charities inside this room, so focus on the first bit, is that we really looked at the problem, how people with limited time who want to do good can really make an impact. And we concluded that volunteering, very vague definition that can be helping in a sports as a coach, that can be helping a church organization, to helping the panda bear. Very different there is how can we activate all those people that want to do something good. And what we found is that if we can stimulate charities to offer more, or let creativity be encouraged, that people can create their own projects, their own initiatives, and if we can link that with technology, the impact can be so much bigger. So we believe that the core of doing something good is that you can have an app, you search, I have an hour of time on Thursday afternoon, I like the panda bear, I like football, what can I do? And where do my friends go to? Already then I'm making a difference, and I'm inspiring others as well to do so. I can challenge my group of friends to meet a certain standards of certain amount of hours that we want to do in a year. Companies as well, and municipalities, etc. So I could go on, I will not do that of course obviously, but we really much believe if we can create the same culture change of being environmentally aware. As I always say, 40 years ago, if you were environmentally aware, the chance was likely that you were a hippie or an activist. If you're not in our generation, environmentally aware, there's something wrong with you, right? Like if somebody says, well, I don't care about sustainability, we'll look like, okay, what do you eat? Or what's wrong here? And we want to do exactly that same thing with helping one another. That it's not like, oh, you do this because you're kind of weak and you do something. No, that's actually cool to make an impact. And that impact, that's up to you, what you find important. So that's what we do.
So you're basically making volunteering cool, so to say. Do you think in general that volunteering can help solve global challenges?
Yeah, we definitely believe so. Like when we were starting Deedmob, we thought, let's think big and small at the same time. Big charities were testing like Red Cross, UNICEF, the bigger ones in the Netherlands, and representing more than 450,000 volunteers. We thought, well, we'll get there already. But then we believed actually, well, wait a second. We were speaking formally to companies, and they said, like a company like Samsung, saying, well, we actually are part of trying to reach the UN development goals. And the problem that we have is that we can't really coordinate amongst other companies what share you can do and all of that. And the core again is volunteering. So many companies, I know Booking.com and Heineken as well, stimulate people to do corporate volunteering, skilled volunteering, providing something back to the community. And if we can, in a way, collaborate, as one of the questions was before from I think the lady sitting out there, like if we collaborate on that, we can indeed reach, I think, those goals. And technology enables that.
I see he's already next one, and I just wanted to pass the part to you because you definitely have another opinion on that.
So I think it depends, I think you can, but I also think you have to be realistic in the change that you can make. So I think the change that you can make as a volunteer can be very meaningful, but it will also be normally a little bit more one-offs. So you can help your neighbor with grocery shopping, you can help one kid learn how to read with bleisure, you can help individuals. And that is super powerful and also very meaningful, so there's nothing wrong with that, it's a good thing. But I think if you want to make long-term and sustainable change, it requires more than that. It requires, and again, an understanding of the issue at hand that you want to change. For instance, looking at the list of one of the presenters before, I organized many demonstrations, mostly for Free Burma, for Belarus. So I was a political activist for a long time. But I wasn't very effective because I didn't understand how political decisions were made. So I could get hundreds and hundreds of people to go to a concert and to demonstrate and to yell free on Sochi. But as long as I didn't understand how the European Union would decide upon sanctions against a country like Burma, I was ineffective. Because the members of parliament that I would speak to wouldn't say to me, we want Burma to be a dictatorship. Of course they wanted it to be a free country. But they would say, yeah, I agree with you, so what? So I think understanding the interest and heart, understanding how to change a process is incredibly important, and it requires time and effort. And whether that's political change, whether that's change within a company, I came into Heineken being a political activist, or at least a political campaigner, and I've been a political advisor by then. But what I had learned was politics. So you think this, I think that. and I'm going to make my argument stronger than yours. I'm going to actually show the differences, because that's going to make me more powerful, and that's going to have voters either vote for me or that. So again, sort of a binary situation. So I came in, and I remember it was one of the first problems that I ran into, and I was very much against, and I was being really opinionated and said this is wrong, etc. And I got kicked out of the project group because nobody wanted to listen to me making a fuss, because I didn't understand the rules of the game, and I didn't understand how to influence. Now I understand that I have to see who's around the table, I have to understand the process, I have to understand who decides, and once I know all of that, I can effectively change. So I think for all change it requires time, effort, understanding, interest, and so forth, and then it can be genuinely long-term and sustainable, and it can really change the needle.
You have something to say about that? I think, Barbara, you, I mean, if I can just give a quick intro, I mean, you are creating also definitely social impact through education. Maybe you could explain a little bit what you're doing, and maybe also add on.
Yeah, because to add on to that, I've never been politically active, and I've never worked for a corporate. But I am a developer, and developers tend to work together. I think a lot of people know what open source is. I mean, being a developer, you always work on we always say we step on the shoulders of giants. You always work on, and I think we all do in the world. I mean, people before, generations before us created stuff, and we can go on from there. That's what developers do. Developers are super cool people. I mean, if I don't know how to do something, and someone else does, there was a time he didn't know it by himself, so they are willing to help. So about a year ago there came this moment where me and a good friend, who's also a developer, came together and said, hey, what if we got all the developers together, took one big challenge a year, and all work together on this same problem. Well, big dream, right? So way too big. We were almost ashamed to dream this big. So we said, all right, start small, build confidence, start small. And we started with the Roof guys and did projects for companies. We did projects for both commercial companies, but we also do for charities. And it grew. And now we're with 40 students. We're looking for opening up in Eindhoven and in Paris. And we said, hey, it might be possible to connect all these cities. That's a strategy that we're having right now. Like I said, we're a student-run company. We build cool stuff. We do this for both commercial companies and for social companies. But then for me came an opportunity, which was kind of amazing, and that's the social impact you're talking about. I read this cool news article in the NRC, which is a newspaper here in the Netherlands, last December, and it was about this school. It was a school being set up by this French billionaire. His name is Xavier Niel. He's well known. I think he's one of the 20 wealthiest guys in the world. He's a super charming man. He owned his he got his first millions by running a sex jet. Don't know what you think of that. We developers think it's pretty cool.
YouTube wasn't taking that first, right?
It was. And 4 years ago, he said, all right, France is like behind when it comes to IT. And I know, I think they're one of the top 10 economies in the world, but when it comes to IT, I think they're number 27, depends on what ratings you're reading. But secondly, in Paris they have a lot of banlieue, like the neighborhoods, and there's a lot of kids there who do not have the same chances on education than we all had. So he said, all right, I'm going to start a IT university. He started that 4 years ago. They now have 4,000 developers. They have 70,000 applicants each year. It has no teachers. There are no exams. There are no rosters, and it's tuition free. It's a super cool school. You've never seen a school like that. You know the street artist Banksy? It's a Banksy museum. It's like you see 1,000 IMAX. Super cool. And so I read the newspaper article. It's about like a previous speaker said. It's about taking action. So I read the news article, contacted the school, said, hey, I like what you're doing. I want to come over. So I booked a hotel room for a couple of nights, went there with my friend, and we were there. Got drunk with the staff. Got back to Amsterdam. The company that I founded was like being picked up by big companies like Booking, like TomTom. We got back, we got the founders of a couple of companies together and said, hey, we want to get the school here. Long story short, I had a big millions investment and I can start the school here in Amsterdam and trying to make an impact. But by the end of the year, or in 5 years from now, if I want to dream big, what I'd really like to do is like combine all IT guys in the world, get one challenge and have everybody solve that same challenge in 1 year. I think we can, and I think everybody can attend